Other news going on this afternoon, new housing numbers in. The number of homes that sold in July across Canada dropped a whopping 30% compared to a year ago. BC taking the biggest plunge at just over 14%. Home sales in Ontario dropped 8% compared to last year. The province has introduced HST, by the way, on July 1st, which experts say is likely a big factor for the drop in the number of home sales. As for the prices, though, the average cost of a home sold through the multiple listing service was just over $330,000. That's up 1% over last year. Well, to size up what's happening, we have Peter Kinch with us in Vancouver. Peter's a mortgage consultant with the Dominion Lending Centres. Peter, good to see you. A 14% drop, though, in home sales in BC. Anyone around you there getting kind of nervous in your province? And how much did the concern about the introduction of the HST affect the number of homes sold in July?
Well, Brad, I think, there is some concern, but at the same time, this is so predictable. In my opinion, in the spring, we had what I call a perfect storm for a spike in sales activity and prices. First of all, you've got a spring market, which is by nature heavier, more activity. But, combine that with the fact that you've got this impending sense of, HST in Ontario and BC, HST is coming in, rising rates. I mean, there was almost this fear that people were saying, like, oh my God, I better get in now while I still can. And in my opinion, Brad, I think a lot of that was unfounded. Like, for example, HST really is not going to have a major impact in the big picture. We'll discover that 6 months from now when things settle. And rates didn't spike. In fact, long-term rates came off. But all of it led to this almost panic, get in while you can. And the after July 1st, the opposite took effect, which is almost a perfect storm to say, well, there's going to be a drop in activity because, HST's here, rates have risen, and it's the summer.
Coupled with the fact, of course, that a lot of those people who may have been shopping for a home in July or August did so in April and May to avoid the HST.
Absolutely.
Right? So what does all this mean for
that's why you saw the part.
What does this mean for the summer market then from here on up until the beginning of the fall?
Well, I think whenever a consumer market, let's put it this way, real estate markets are driven by consumer confidence. And whenever consumer confidence is shaken by anything, we saw that with the subprime crisis in the States, followed by the credit crunch, followed by the Great Recession. Whenever consumer confidence is shaken, consumers stop spending money. They take their dollars off the sidelines. Combine that with the fact that during summer months, people tend to sit in the sidelines anyways. They're off on vacations and holidaying. My prediction is you would normally see about a 3% drop in prices right around this time. And I think it's going to be compounded by the fact that there's more of a consumer fear out there and almost a complete lack of confidence with what's happening in the markets. HST rates, but also what's happening in Europe. And the United States hasn't settled down. And my prediction was what should have been a soft landing in the markets will be almost compounded to the fact we may see a 3 to 6% drop in prices following this inactivity.
So you're thinking by winter, spring, as much as 6% less if you're trying to sell a home now, get it sold now because 6% less perhaps by the winter or the spring?
I think you're in a downward part of that market right now in July, August, and it's going to keep tapering. Everything has a lagging impact, so you'll see that effect on prices in September and October. But like I said, once the winter settles in and people say, Jesus, HST wasn't that big of a deal. It only impacted brand new homes. It doesn't affect resale homes. Plus, interest rates didn't skyrocket. In fact, they kind of settled. Long-term rates are at near record lows. I think the consumer market's going to realize that over the winter, and by next spring, the market will recapture anything that's been lost in the summer months.
So just to finish up on the other side of the coin on this, if I'm looking for a home, when should I spring on this?
If I'm shopping for a home, I would say between now and October is probably your best bet because the lack of activity in the market is going to create motivated vendors, softening of prices, and rates are still historically low. So in my opinion, it's the absolute best opportunity for someone looking to get into the market.
Good to get that kind of insight. Peter Kinch with Dominion Lending Centres joining us from Vancouver. Good seeing you, Peter. Thanks very much for this.
It's my pleasure.
Let's talk about China now.